Welcome to the Gospel Chariot podcast with Greg Smith. Join me for theological ramblings, thoughts, Bible classes, sermons, and an occasional guest. If you're searching for a confident relationship with God, if you're seeking clarity in your eternal purpose, you have found the right podcast. Let's open God's Word and hear His message. And may the Holy Spirit direct my words and enrich your hearing.
So we've been doing this series of lessons on Jesus said, just simple statements of Jesus, those kind of statements that are most of the time easy to understand but hard to practice. So Jesus comes along at one point in his ministry and he says, a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Now I know when you hear that, you're thinking, okay, here we go. Greg's going to do another one of those sermons on money again. All right, so just in an effort to get that out of the way, we're going to do all of the money verses, and then we're going to come back. For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. Now keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have. Because God has said, never will I leave you, never will I forsake you. So we say with confidence, the Lord is my helper. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? Or the very familiar, no servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. And that brings us to Luke chapter 12, where Jesus is teaching. There is a man from the crowd, and he says to Jesus, tell my brother to divide the inheritance with me. Now, if you just look at that, if you just listen to that statement, that doesn't seem like too bad of a request, does it? I mean, let's just suppose that something happens to your parents and the estate is out there and your brother controls all of the money. And you think, well, I should at least get my half, right? And so you're thinking, well, I'll just get Jesus to get my brother to divide the half. That sounds like a pretty reasonable request. I just want to get what belongs to me. But there's something that Jesus sees in the man that causes him to say, man, who made me arbitrator in this? So he says to him, be aware, watch out for all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. And I know you're saying, okay, Greg, we're getting ready to talk about money, but money's kind of important. And I would agree with you that there are some areas where money is kind of important. So, just a question. Anybody been to the grocery store lately? Anybody walked into the grocery store and got one of those packages of 18 eggs? And the package of 18 eggs, now I'm not sure, but I think the last time I went to the grocery store, they were like $10 or $11. Might have been 12. I don't know where I was at the grocery store, but I was thinking, man, that's a lot for eggs. I thought about taking that package of eggs and walking up to the counter and looking at the lady who was checking me out, and because it was a lady, that's, if it had been a guy, I'd have looked at the guy who was checking me out, but it was a lady who was checking me out, and I thought about saying, hey, don't worry about that. Jesus has got this one. Right? But I don't think that would have worked. Because I think if I had done that and walked out of the store, there would have probably somebody following me out the store trying to get, the half of my car for their 18 eggs. Because you look at life and you think, okay, money has some value, doesn't it? The last time I checked, we need some kind of currency to pay for the stuff that we buy. Money can't be unimportant. It has to have some kind of value to it. Now, and it's not only important for the things that we purchase. Jesus comes along in his teaching and the New Testament in his teaching, and it says another value of money is in the things that you can share. So you're supposed to take your money and you're supposed to be able to share that with other people. So if we're talking about money and we're going to have this sermon about money, I know that some of you are thinking, Greg, oh, by the way, y'all see my shirt? Brandon Davis gave me this shirt, and I told him I would model it. Now, he's not here. I think it says the man, the myth, the legend, Greg. In his defense, he wanted to get one that said Brother Craig, but he couldn't find one like that. So, but I did tell him I would model this shirt today since he bought it for me. That does not mean that I will model every shirt that you buy for me, but I tend to model some shirts and Camp Bacon shirts. Right? I tend to model those. But I know if we're thinking about money, you're going to say, well, Greg, if money's not important, why did you just pass a contribution plate? Because we just took some of your money, didn't we? The church did. And not only did we take up some of your money this week, you know what we're going to do next week? We're going to pass it again. You know what we're going to do the week after that? We're going to pass it again. You know what we're going to do every time that you come here and gather as a church? We're going to pass that little basket. Now, I preached at a church one time. It was really interesting church. And we passed the basket. And I got up and I got ready to preach. It's when I was in college. And a little guy comes out the side and he said, excuse me just a minute. He gets in front of everybody and he said, we didn't get enough. We didn't get enough. So we're going to sing and we're going to pass it again. So they passed it again. And they passed it again, and I got ready to get up and preach, and he was sitting on the front seat, and he was looking at this, and I get up to preach, and he gets up again, and he walks up to the front, and he said, we still ain't got enough. So we're going to sing, we're going to pass it again. And they passed it till they got however much that they wanted. And that's how much that they needed for that Sunday. And so it was also a really interesting church because he took all of the big bills and the checks, and so he knew what he needed for the week. So he took the big bills and the checks, and then whoever came to guest preach that Sunday got whatever was left over. But it was in little bills and change. So I was sticking money like in every pocket I had, and I was like, don't y'all have a bag or something I could? No, we ain't got no bag. So I just put money in. It was a really interesting Sunday. I'm sorry, got off on an aside. I mean, Jesus comes along, and even Jesus has people who give him money for his ministry, doesn't he? You ever thought about that? Why did Jesus need these people to follow him and to supply his needs with money? And in Luke chapter 8, he gives a list of women who were traveling with Jesus and supporting him out of their pocket. Those women were supporting his ministry, or at least a large part of it. And I scratch my head sometimes with that because, Jesus is Jesus, right? So if Jesus really wanted to fund his ministry, do you think Jesus really needed money? He fed 5,000, he fed 4,000. I'm pretty sure Jesus could have supplied everything that he needed for his ministry just by saying, hey, you know what? God, we need some food. We need a little money for travel. We need this or we need that. But that wasn't the point. Jesus used money and people who supported him for his ministry. So you follow that and you think, well, the request seems reasonable. Money is not unimportant. It has value in life. So it's not just about money for this young man, this man who comes and asks Jesus to ask his brother to divide the inheritance with him. Jesus' statement was, watch and guard against all kinds of greed. A man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. It's not just about what you possess, it's about having greed. So Jesus' teaching here is about greed. It's not just about money. So Jesus follows that up with this parable, right? And you like my picture? I had AI generate that picture for me. So there's a couple of pictures in here. I just tried AI to see if AI would generate it. The only thing you probably can't see it from there is that guy's wearing glasses. I'm not sure they had glasses in Bible times. They might have. I'm not sure. But he got on a pair of glasses. So Jesus tells this parable about this rich fool, right? You remember the parable? So the guy goes out and he plants a field. And he plants his field, and not only does he plant his field, it produces more than he could possibly imagine. He has got produce from his field everywhere. He's got so much, he can't even put it in barns. So just imagine you go to work and you get a bonus that is so big that when you take the check to the bank says, I don't think this would ever happen, by the way. The bank says, that check is so big, you just can't deposit that here. And he says, I got to go deposit somewhere else. Now, it may work this way. Do you know how much you're insured for at a bank? If the bank collapses, how much money can you get back? Y'all can answer this. It's okay. $250,000. Right. So if you got $500,000, might you put that in 2 banks? Well, you might. Or if you got more than that, maybe 3 banks or 4 banks, you're kind of looking at, okay, how am I protected? Well, this guy comes in and he's got you don't take your grain and put it in a bank, by the way. So he's got to do something with all this produce, all this stuff that his crop has produced. He says, I tell you what I'll do. Y'all know the parable. I don't have to tell it to you. I'll tear down the barn. I'll build me a bigger barn. And boy, then I'll say to my soul, whoo, you got everything you need. Just relax, eat, drink. And the text said, just relax, take it easy. You got it made. That's the Greg Smith paraphrase, but that's what the Greek says. You got it made. Do you remember what Jesus tells him? You fool. You fool. This night, your soul will be required of you. They will require your soul. Boy, in the day, it's a whole different sermon there, okay? We'll get to that some other time. What happens to all the stuff that he put in the barn? What happens to all the money that it would produce? Somebody else is going to get it. Jesus says, because you saved all this up, so you're going to relax, you're going to take it easy, you're just going to have some fun, and this night you're going to die. Now, that creates this thought process, for me at least, when I'll study the text. I don't know where we came up with the phrase. Y'all know the phrase, there's an elephant, the elephant in the room, or the 800-pound gorilla in the room. I don't know where we come up with phrases like that. What does that mean? That means there's something there nobody wants to talk about, right? Well, I had AI make me another little picture. No retirement Jesus. Is that what Jesus is talking about? He said, man, don't you try to take it easy, because when you take it easy, I'm going to come get you. Well, the culture that this man was in and our culture aren't the same kind of cultures. Is Jesus saying, well, you better not retire? I mean, some people read that and they say, well, I'm just definitely not going to retire, because when I retire, Jesus is going to come get me. The question here for the rich fool is not really as much about retirement. I don't think Jesus is opposed to retirement, by the way. In fact, I think retirement can be good for you. I think retirement can free you up to serve God in a greater way. I think it can provide more opportunities for you to serve. Now, I don't know about people who retire, because people who retire always tell me, well, I'm so busy now, I don't know how I had time to work. I don't know what y'all doing to yourself, right? But y'all all just nodding like that's the case. It's like, well, you know what? Sometimes what we need to do is just kind of look at that and say, maybe this gives us an opportunity to serve God. The problem with the rich fool is it's about purpose. It's about purpose. It's not just about retirement. It's about inactivity. What is he going to do? Nothing. He's going to relax. He's going to enjoy this world. What's the problem with enjoying this world? Well, do y'all like to enjoy the world? I mean, I don't want to go through life just acting like I'm not having a good time. There are some songs that we sing that I really struggle with. Now, I don't struggle with them so much that I'll stamp them and say, do not sing. Like when I go to PowerPoint up there, it says, Greg says, do not sing. Right? I don't struggle with them that much. But there's some songs that I really struggle with. They're the songs that tell me I'm just struggling through this life and I'm not going to get anything good just so I can get to the other life and things will be great. And everything here is just going to be horrible. I don't think Jesus came so that everything we do here is going to be horrible. I think Jesus came to bring life and bring it to the full. I think Jesus intends for us to enjoy the life that we have in the flesh. Now, I don't mean enjoy it with sin, but I think he means that we enjoy this life in a way that we can serve him. And so I don't think life here should be miserable, but I think we should also remember that the stuff that we have in life, it may not stay here, right? So I had AI generate me another little picture here. A casket full of money. It's like that lady, this guy told his wife, he said, now look, when I die, possessions are really important to me. It's like the pharaohs of Egypt. You know, the pharaohs of Egypt were buried with a lot of really, really expensive stuff and gold and stuff because they thought that what they were buried with, they were going to have in the next life. So when you bury me, you make sure that you bury all the money with me. And that was her instruction. That was his instruction to her. So when it got time for the funeral, she said, well, he told me I was supposed to bury all the money with him, so I'm going to write him a check. Right? So what happens to it? What happens to it? Well, we leave it behind. Now, I also don't want to tell you by leaving it behind, that's necessarily a bad thing. Because by leaving it behind, you may bless someone that's left behind. You know, what you leave behind might bless your kids. It might bless another family. It might bless the church. The issue is not what you leave behind that can be a blessing to others. The issue is your heart. The issue is your heart and your desire. I think what Jesus is trying to say here is don't spend your life chasing something you're going to leave behind, because it's not going to be yours. It's going to be gone. So how do we have this kind of envy? How do we have this kind of greed that Jesus is talking about? Well, you might just hoard wealth and possessions. You might just keep storing up and storing up and storing up, and you just got more than you need. You just can't get rid of something. Now, have you known anybody who hoards stuff up? Like they just cannot seem to throw something away? Now, my wonderful Daddy Bill, who sang Tempted and Tried, who I loved tremendously, Ed was one of the strongest men that I've ever known in my life. I mean, like the Christmas before he died, he could still grab the door frame and do a one-handed pull-up. I mean, that's pretty strong. He was 78. Is that right, Mom? The Christmas before he died, they were putting his great grandkids on his back, and he was doing one-handed push-ups with his great grandkids sitting on his back. I mean, he was strong. You know what else he could do? He could put more stuff in a school bus than anybody you've ever met in your life. And not just one school bus. He filled that school bus up so he could have another school bus, so he could have another school bus, so he could have another school bus. And not only did he have school buses, he built cabinets with drawers inside his school buses so he could get more stuff in the school bus. Now, in his defense, if he needed you to get something, he would say, go to this school bus and look in this drawer and you will find this thing. He knew the stuff that was in the school bus, but he had lots of stuff, didn't he, Mom? He did. He didn't like to throw stuff away. I know there's rumor. It's only rumor. But there's rumor that there are people related to people in this church who won't throw stuff away because they're afraid one day they might need it. Now, I'm not telling you to go home and throw all the stuff away that you've been saving up. You might need it, right? But greed is when we start hoarding wealth and possessions to the point that it's detrimental to other people. Or when we're so engrossed by money that it doesn't singe our conscience to go exploit somebody else for personal gain so that we can have something that they have. Or when we have dishonest or unethical business practices so we can make more money, or we can take advantage of the system, or we can bend a rule, or we can bend a law. Or we're so engrossed with money, we're so greedy for money that we neglect relationships and spiritual growth. Money is just the only thing that matters to us. We judge all of our success in life by how much money we have. And that's the kind of greed that Jesus is talking about. And we say, well, we don't really see that kind of greed in our world. And I couldn't come up with kind of an image that I wanted. The only thing I could kind of come up with was a shopping mall. Now, when I was in college, shopping malls were big things. I mean, at Lipscomb, when I was in college, if you wanted to go out and do something, you went to the shopping mall. Because the shopping mall, it had all the stores, it had the movie theaters, it had everything that you wanted to do. That was a place you went. Now, I don't know it's that way anymore. I mean, I don't really know. I don't run in those circles. So some of you who are younger might be, yeah, we really like to go to shopping malls and just spend hours and hours and hours. But I don't think it works that way anymore. But what shopping malls represent is that greed is a lot more than just money. It's the world that we live in. It's a culture of consumption. We've just got to have something else. We got to have the next best thing. We've got to buy something else to make us happy, or we're not going to be happy until we have this thing. And then our how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about life, how we judge success, it's all about what we possess. And so greed is much deeper than just money. So if you read this passage and you're thinking, well, this is just really about money, it's not really about money. Greed can be about a lot of other things besides money. Now, I struggle with the money thing because, and this is not supposed to condemn you, it's supposed to condemn me as well. Because I think about this myself, and here's my question. When is enough enough? When will I reach the point? We'll have to have a lot more shoes, baby, before we get here, okay? But when will we reach the point where we say, I've got enough money, I think I'll give the rest of it away? You ever thought about where is that point? Where you just get enough money that you just don't want anymore. You just don't need anymore. You're okay with giving the rest of it away. You're okay with somebody else having it. Now, I don't know where it is, but it's the kind of question I have to ask myself that thinks, okay, Greg, for you, where would that be? But it might not be money. It might be the way other people see me. It might be what I want other people to think about me. I could be greedy about that. I could want people to think that I'm just the smartest person that they've ever met. I'm just going to try to convince everybody that I'm just incredibly, wildly, now y'all who know me know that is not the case, but I'm just wildly intelligent. Just, I want y'all all to have the Olivia Merritt syndrome, right? Y'all know what the Olivia Merritt syndrome is? Josh, what's the Olivia Merritt syndrome? I'm a genius. Now, I paid her when she was young to keep saying that till it ingrained her in her head. I don't have to pay her now, but I can walk up to Olivia Merritt and say, Olivia Merritt, what am I? She'll say, Mr. Craig, you're a genius. Boy, it sounds good. Now, I can't pay all of y'all to say that. I paid Olivia to say it. But it might be what people think about me. May not have anything to do with possessions. Maybe might be food. Can you be greedy for food? How many of y'all ate today? Before you got here, you had something to eat? Boy, some of y'all must really be hungry. Don't forget we're having a meal right after this. What's the chances I'm going to eat today? Pretty good. What's the chance I won't eat tomorrow? Pretty good. What's the chance I'm going to drive by Dairy Queen without stopping? Pretty low. Pretty low. Can you eat too much? Can you be greedy? Yeah. Might not be that at all. It might be sexual relationships. Greed can go into a lot of different areas of life. That's when Jesus comes along and he talks about the fruit of the Spirit. He puts things up like self-control and moderation and temperance and restraint. Are those important? Yes. Yes. And they're the opposite of what Jesus says when Jesus comes along and he says, well, how about this greed? Watch out for it. Because if you don't watch out for it, you will be like this man who it seems makes a very reasonable request. Tell my brother to split the inheritance with me. And I don't know what Jesus saw, but Jesus saw something in his heart, something that was greedy, who caused him to react the way that he reacted. And so we look at our life and we read verses like, but godliness with contentment is great gain, for we brought nothing into the world and we have taken nothing out of it. Wow. That's some powerful words. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. But we can be honest with each other and say, I really struggle with just being content with food and clothing. I kind of want some more stuff. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. For the love of money is a root of all kind of evil. And some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. And you can look at those words of Paul to Timothy and those words were right. And just for the record, Paul there is writing about religious false teachers who have gone into the world and tried to take advantage of other people for financial gain in the name of Jesus. That's one of the groups of people, not that it doesn't include all of us, but that's one of the groups of people that he's talking to. So as Jesus goes through all of that in Luke chapter 12, in Luke chapter 12, verse 32, he finally gets down to why you're supposed, and verses like this, seek first the kingdom of God. You know why you're supposed to seek first the kingdom of God? And all these other things will be added. And in this passage in Luke chapter 12, he says things like, don't worry about what you're going to wear. Don't worry about what you're going to eat. Now, sometimes we can misread that. Do you think it's ever possible for a Christian to be put in a place in life where they're hungry? Most likely. You think it's possible at some point for a Christian to be put in a place in life that they're really not sure what they're going to wear? They're not sure that they're going to have garments. I'm not talking about like 15, outfits in one closet. You don't even have the one thing to wear. Yeah, it was possible. It happened. Jesus said, don't chase those things. Don't chase those things because the world chases those things. And here's the reason in Luke chapter 12, he tells you not to chase them and why we sang the songs we sang this morning. Because your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom. He's given you the kingdom. Boy, now you read that and you think, oh boy, that means that everything in the world is mine. Well, in a way, that means I'm going to have everything I ever wanted. Probably not. I'm going to have the best car that they can put on the market because Jesus gave me the kingdom. Not likely. And every time I sit down to eat, it's going to be prime rib. No, probably not. Well, if by that verse, Jesus doesn't mean that I get all of the best things in life, what does Jesus mean? It means Jesus has given you a purpose in life that is far better than chasing after things and people and relationship and how other people view you. Jesus has given you something that the Father has given you something through Jesus that is absolutely remarkable. And there is nothing in this world that compares to it. Because it's not just that the guy who got all of the stuff didn't want to do anything at all. When I read the context, the problem is the guy who got all of the stuff is going to relax, take it easy, and do nothing. Where is his service to God? What is he doing with his life? Is that your life, really? I mean, I'm going to space it out like my life. Diane and I, we were having this conversation yesterday. Saturday? A couple of days all mixed up. We're driving to West Tennessee, and I said, hey, baby, when are you going to retire? And she gave me a couple of dates, and we talked about that for a little bit. Is that really life? We're gonna get married, right? Got married in 88. Both went to work, right? Boy, we're going to work really, really hard. Going to do a lot of stuff. Going to save up some money. So when we get to whatever that magical number is, right? We get to that number. What are we going to do when we get to that number? I mean, what do most people say? Man, we're going to travel. We're not going to do anything, except all of y'all are so busy you don't know how you retired. We're just going to go have fun. We might go to Paris. Might go to Hawaii. Been trying to get her to go to Paris and Hawaii anyway. Just can't get her on the boat. Can't get her on a plane. So you're trying to go to all of those places. You think, man, we're just going to travel and have fun. We're going to do nothing. We're just going to relax and enjoy life. I hope not. Now, I do want to relax and enjoy life. That part I'm good with. Here's the reality. At least in my head, as long as I can think. When do you think I'll retire? When do you think I'll quit doing Bible classes and talking to people and preaching when they give me a chance? Probably when I'm dead. Now, if I were doing something like Diane and I was an architect, might I quit architecting? Is that a word? I'd probably quit architecting. The question is not, is Diane going to quit architecting? The question is, when is she going to stop serving God? So yesterday we were talking, and I'm not going to tell you what you told me, babe, but she said, I think when I retire, I'd like to do that. And I was thinking, man, that is a really, really cool thing to do, to be able to serve God when you retire. That is a really cool idea. I don't know how you'd pull it off or how it would work, but that is a really, really cool idea. Do you know when you retire from serving God? You don't. Charlie says, when you die? And yeah, it goes right along with the sermon, doesn't it? Charlie sounds good, yeah, when I die, woo! Except when I die, what will I be doing? I'll be serving God. Don't know what I'll be doing, but I'll be serving God. You know what I'm going to do from now until eternity doesn't have an end, right? What am I going to do? I'm going to serve God. So when Jesus comes along and he's talking about this rich fool, No, it's not about money. It's not about what you possess. It's not about what other people think about you. It's not about how the world feels about you. It's not about what the world has to offer. The question is, will you take your life and dedicate it to serving God? Is that what you'll do? Because your Father has been pleased to give you the kingdom, and I don't know if you realize it or not, but the kingdom is not going away. When you leave this world, you will be as much of the kingdom as you are right now. And if you're looking at this thinking, boy, I'll be glad someday when I get into the kingdom, you're already in the kingdom. You're already in the place where God wants you to enjoy what service to Him really means. You've already arrived. It's not like you're trying to get somewhere. You're already there. Now, there's going to be a little different than here, but you're already there.